After rebirth, I chose to be a bad girl. In my senior year of high school, my parents were getting divorced and forced me and my sister to make a choice. In my previous life, my sister chose a rich and powerful scumbag father, thinking that she could live a good life. But the scumbag father already had an illegitimate child and only treated her as a tool. She was framed by her stepmother Victoria and failed the college entrance examination. She was also forced by her father Henry to accompany an old man. She was kicked out of the house after contracting a disease. And I followed my mother Catherine and made great progress all the way. I was admitted to the ideal university and married into a wealthy family. Even my father Henry wanted to curry favor with me. My sister went crazy and poisoned the whole family at a family gathering. When I opened my eyes again, we returned to the day when my parents announced their divorce. This time, my sister chose to follow my mother Catherine first and pushed me to the scumbag father. But she didn't know that although my father Henry was a scumbag, my mother Catherine was poor and crazy, and it would be even worse to follow her. I choose Mom Catherine. Before Dad Henry finished speaking, my sister took the lead and hugged Mom Catherine's arm. She also deliberately instigated discord. Mom, my sister said she doesn't want to suffer with you, but as long as I'm with Mom Catherine, I'm not afraid of anything. Mom Catherine touched her face with relief. Mandy is still considerate. After saying that, she glanced at me again, as if I betrayed her. I glanced at my sister carelessly, walked towards Dad Henry without hesitation, and held his hand. Dad, let's go. He was a little surprised to see that I didn't condemn or resist him, because before my mother quarreled with him, I always helped my mother. But my sister has always been very close to him. He couldn't help asking my sister, Mandy, are you really with your mom? My mom was about to get angry, but Mandy said righteously, I hate cheating scumbags the most, and I will never be with you. My dad was choked and his face turned blue. Seeing my mom's smug look, he pulled me away with a dark face. As soon as I left home, my sister sent me a message. Vivian, it's my turn to marry into a wealthy family in this life, and you can just wait to accompany a disgusting old man. Although she withdrew it in seconds, I still saw it. I curled the corners of my lips. Sure enough, rebirth does not mean changing your mind. She thought that if she followed her mother Catherine, she would definitely marry into a wealthy family and reach the pinnacle of life. Little did she know that her mother Catherine was a crazy woman with a strong desire for control. Especially after divorcing her father Henry, she placed all her hopes on me, and would beat me up if she was not satisfied. Under her mental and physical torture, it was a miracle that I didn't go crazy. I wonder if my sister has this indestructible ability to withstand pressure? My sister and I attended the best high school in the city. This high school is full of hidden talents, most of whom are second-generation rich and powerful people with prominent family backgrounds. Only a very small number of students from ordinary families were admitted with excellent grades. After the rise of the Henry family group, my scumbag father, my sister and I also entered this high school with our money ability, but our grades have always been in the middle of the pack. After all, my father and mother originally planned to send us abroad to study after graduating from high school. They enrolled us in various interest classes, and the requirements for those subjects in the college entrance examination were not high. But I know that from the moment they divorced, my sister and I completely bid farewell to the life of winning by doing nothing. Dad Henry has a new family and an illegitimate son who is 5 years younger than us and is in junior high school. Mom Catherine did not get much property in the divorce. She is still a super brother supporting demon, and all the money she has is given to her younger brother from her mother's side. In other words, my sister and I have lost our status as second-generation rich people, and we can only rely on ourselves in the future. My sister regarded marrying Simon as her life salvation. She tried every means to find out Simon's preferences, dress herself up according to his preferences, and establish her own persona. In order to create her persona of a miserable little white flower, she did not hesitate to drag me into the water. She cried to people everywhere that her father Henry cheated and abandoned his wife and daughter, and she and her mother Catherine were miserable and helpless. But I betrayed her and her mother Catherine and licked the cheating scumbag father in order to enjoy wealth and glory. Under her vigorous propaganda, I became an ungrateful sister, and there were hundreds of posts scolding me on the school forum, but I neither refuted nor clarified. I was already a senior high school student. After graduation, I would go my separate ways. Some people would never see each other again in this life. I didn't care what they thought of me. What's more, I did covet my father's money and wanted to take all his property for myself. The college entrance examination was the first step in my plan to seize the Henry family group. Although I had experienced the college entrance examination once in my previous life, it had been 10 years since I graduated, and I couldn't remember many knowledge points. I had to hurry up and catch up. In order to avoid the same fate as my sister, I was forced to attend various drinking parties after graduating from high school. In the end, she was tricked by her stepmother Victoria and slept with an old man, and even the value of the marriage was lost. She was completely reduced to a tool for stepmother Victoria to pave the way for her son. My father is a very face-conscious person. It is true that he favors boys over girls, but he still values the value of a daughter who is the top scorer in the college entrance examination. After I was admitted to Tsinghua University in my previous life, he kept trying to get close to me and tried to restore the father-daughter relationship. I also used him as a springboard to successfully marry Simon. Otherwise, with Simon's cold and indifferent nature inherited from his father, how could he marry a girl who has nothing but beauty? But my sister did not understand these cruel truths. She was full of fantasies about the romantic story of a rich young master falling in love with a poor and inspirational little white flower. She used all means to perform in front of Simon. The school organized a basketball game, but Mandy, who had never liked sports, signed up. Because one of Simon's hobbies is playing basketball. In my previous life, it was at this basketball game that I won the title of basketball goddess and completely conquered Simon. But this time, I didn't sign up. Because I no longer needed Simon as a springboard, and I didn't have to go to great lengths to please him. Mandy found out that I didn't sign up, and hurried over to test me. Aren't you good at basketball? Why don't you sign up? I continued to do the questions without raising my head. I don't have time, I need to study. Mandy snatched my test paper. Do you want me to reveal the test questions for next year's college entrance examination to you? I remember them all. I looked at her coldly. Give me back the test paper. She seemed to be frightened by me, and subconsciously let go. I lowered my eyes and continued to concentrate on doing the questions. She began to test me. Vivian, you are also reborn, right? I glanced at her. If you are sick, go get treatment, don't talk nonsense here and disturb my study. She was full of suspicion, but there was no evidence to prove that I was reborn like her. You really don't want to join the basketball team? Simon is going to be the coach of the women's team. I just pretended not to hear. Mandy breathed a sigh of relief. She probably thought that this time the basketball goddess must be her. Unfortunately, she forgot that the reason why I was able to get the reputation of the basketball goddess was not just because of my beauty, but because I led Class 13 to win the championship, and also won the best MVP with 30 points and 16 assists. For young and passionate boys in the middle age, such girls are dazzling enough. Not to mention Simon, who loves basketball deeply. I heard from my deskmate, who is also a member of the female team, that Mandy and Simon are getting closer and closer during the training time after school. Simon also personally picks Mandy up and drops her off at school. I asked her, is Mandy good at basketball? She rolled her eyes. She is shit. She runs a few steps like she's dying, and she wants others to pass the ball to her. If we don't pass the ball, she'll say we're excluding her. I give up. There are teachers from the sports school watching this basketball game. Those who perform well may be selected by the sports school coach. So many sports students who want to apply for sports schools actively participate. There are also 2 sports students in our class, and this game is very important to them. Although Mandy has practiced for 2 months, her skills are still not up to standard, so she can only sit on the bench as a substitute. But how can Mandy be willing to miss such an important opportunity to show off? Before the first half was over, one of the athletes suddenly fell to the ground and was rushed to the school hospital. Mandy immediately applied to be a substitute. The captain was hesitant, so Mandy asked her loudly, I have been training so hard recently, but you didn't even give me a chance to play, and you said you didn't deliberately exclude me. Her voice attracted a lot of attention, and the captain couldn't stand the pressure and had to let her play. After Mandy came on the court, she performed very actively. Then, at the end of the first half, our class went from leading the opponent by 10 points to trailing by 3 points. The whole team was so angry that their faces turned black. Simon, as the coach, directly scolded Mandy. But Mandy didn't think she had any problems, and said shamelessly, I just came on the court, I'm a little nervous, I will be fine in the second half. Simon didn't give her a chance, and let another substitute come on in the second half. But she fell to the ground with a sprained foot less than 2 minutes after she came on the court, and found thumbtacks on the soles of her shoes. Now even the dumbest people knew there was a problem, and everyone turned their eyes to Mandy. She looked innocent. Why are you looking at me like that? Suspecting me? After all, there was no evidence, and there was no substitute, so Mandy had to take over. As expected, we lost badly in the second half. At the end, Mandy was the first to attack. Someone must have deliberately made trouble. First, they ruined our core players, and then injured the substitutes. I have always felt stomachaches and weak all over. Who hates us so much? While wiping her tears, she cast her eyes on me, who was listening to English in the corner with headphones. Is Vivian responsible for delivering the water today? Someone asked. Mandy immediately said, check if there is any problem with everyone's water. Finally, laxative ingredients were found in the water of the sports students. Mandy insisted that I must have deliberately cheated everyone to be angry with her. Vivian, how could you do this? You are using collective honor to fight with me, isn't that too much? Do you know how hard it is for everyone to squeeze in time for training? She wiped her tears and accused me. My deskmate immediately defended me. Vivian is not that kind of person, she has no reason to do this. Why no reason? She has a crush on Simon, and she is jealous of me because she knows that Simon and I are close. Mandy immediately put a big hat on me. Simon happened to hear this. He looked at me with obvious disgust in his eyes. I understand. Mandy knew that she couldn't stand out by playing basketball, so she deliberately came up with such a bad idea. She wanted to step on me, win Simon's sympathy, and find a reasonable excuse for her poor performance in the basketball game. If she used this little cleverness in her studies, even if she couldn't get into Tsinghua or Peking University, she could still fight for 985. I couldn't help but feel sorry for her and continued to listen to English. Vivian, don't you explain it? The sports student who had just returned from the school clinic asked loudly. As a sports student, she worked hard for this competition, but she was eliminated in the first round. How could she not hate it? I took off my headphones and looked at her. What do you want to explain? Did you put drugs in my water? The doctor examined me and said that I was given laxatives. She showed everyone the test results. And the thumbtacks in my shoes, did you do that? The substitute was also very angry. I thought for a while and asked, why don't we call the police? Everyone was dumbfounded. They didn't expect me to be so tough. Mandy's face panicked instantly, and she stammered, is it necessary to call the police for such a small matter? I nodded firmly. Poisoning classmates and putting thumbtacks in people's shoes is a crime of intentional injury. The police uncle is experienced in handling cases and will definitely find out the truth. When the time comes, go to jail if necessary and pay compensation if necessary. Mandy's legs softened when she heard go to jail. I said forcefully, if you just apologize, everyone will forgive you. Why make a big deal out of it? I sneered, it wasn't me, why should I apologize? Call the police to clear my name and give justice to the 2 victims, isn't that good? My deskmate also spoke up for me, it definitely wasn't Vivian who did it. She was buried in her studies every day and never paid attention to the basketball game. I dragged her to deliver the water today. As soon as the water was placed there, she went to the audience. She didn't participate in distributing the water, so how did she know who to poison? The thumbtack in Gao Zihan's shoes, Vivian didn't have a chance to do it, right? Mandy. I remember that during the halftime break, you told everyone to take off their shoes and relax their feet, right? You were also very diligent in helping everyone put their shoes in order. You usually hate the smell of everyone's feet after exercise. Everyone looked at Mandy. Her face turned red with nervousness, and when she had no words to say, she could only cry out. I was kind enough to help everyone get shoes, but I was splashed with dirty water. If I wanted to harm someone, why didn't I harm the captain and others, but a substitute instead? I said casually, one of the main players has been lost, and there are only 2 substitutes. Gao Zihan was injured and left the field, leaving you. At this point, everyone understands. The basketball team was so angry that they wanted to tear Mandy apart. I'm going to tell the teacher. No, I'm going to call the police. The sports students were the most angry and insisted on calling the police. Mandy ran to the windowsill when she saw this. Okay, you don't believe me, then I'll die to prove my point. We were all high school students, and we had never seen such a scene of suicide, so we were immediately frightened by her. The head teacher came quickly and asked her to come down and tell him if she had any grievances. Mandy cried and complained that I took the lead in bullying her and slandering her. She also said how innocent and pitiful she was. The head teacher forced me and several people from the basketball team to apologize to her. We are all classmates, you can't really watch her jump off the building, right? Especially you, Vivian, Mandy is your sister, can you bear to watch her die? The captain and other team members felt very aggrieved, but they didn't want to watch Mandy jump off the building. I had to apologize to her. Only I maintained a calm expression, if she has the courage to die, I will die with her. We are twins, destined to live and die together. After saying that, I stood up and walked to another windowsill, smiling and saying to Mandy, count 1, 2, 3, let's jump together? She was frightened by my expression. The special induction between twins let her know that I was not scaring her, nor was I joking. Mandy was finally scared. Are you crazy? I winked at my deskmate, and she took advantage of Mandy's distraction to pull her off the windowsill and press her to the ground. She is indeed a sports student, with a lot of strength. Mandy was pressed to the ground by her and cried for help. The head teacher severely criticized Mandy and called my mother to talk. My mother was so angry that she trembled when she heard that Mandy had caused so many troubles in school. In front of all the classmates, she beat Mandy left and right, and Mandy's nose and face were swollen. If the teacher hadn't pulled her fast, Mandy would have been injured by her. You're already in the 3rd year of high school, but you don't study hard and you're still messing around. Do you want to die? If you don't do better than your sister in the next monthly exam, I'll beat you to death. She said this harshly and dragged Mandy home. After seeing my mother's madness, my classmates all looked at me with sympathy, as if they understood why I chose my father. My deskmate also secretly breathed a sigh of relief for me. It's better to follow your cheating father than to follow such a mother. It's too scary. Then, she couldn't help but sympathize with Mandy. Mandy may have been tortured by your mother and her mind is twisted. Who would do these conspiracies in school? I didn't comment on her words. This is Mandy's own choice. I also experienced the same torture in my previous life, but I never took the initiative to hurt others. But Mandy got a blessing in disguise. Simon actually began to take the initiative to care about her because of sympathy. The two did not make an official announcement, but they were already recognized as a couple by their classmates. Mandy was very happy and took the initiative to show off to me. I succeeded after all, Simon is mine. I said oh, and continued to concentrate on doing the questions. Seeing my flat reaction, she was very dissatisfied. Don't pretend, I know you are jealous to death. But Simon hates you now, he doesn't even bother to look at you. I looked up and asked her with a smile, you ran to me to show off, do you want me to compete with you? Sister, if I really want to compete with you, who do you think will win? The smile on her face froze instantly, and a trace of guilt appeared in her eyes, but she still had to pretend to be calm. What a joke, of course it's me. I raised the corner of my mouth without commenting and pointed out the window. Simon was being stopped by a schoolgirl to ask for WeChat. Mandy finally didn't care about being angry with me and ran out to declare her sovereignty. For a period of time, Mandy devoted herself to Simon and rarely bothered me. I finally had peace of mind and devoted myself to studying. In my last life, I was tortured by my mother. I had to do housework and work part-time to earn money. I had to stay up late to study every day. In this life, I followed my scumbag father. Although he didn't love me much, he gave me enough money and freedom. My stepmother Victoria also didn't dare to bully me openly because she had just succeeded in her position. Just like in my previous life, she played the trick of flattering me. She gave me a lot of pocket money and bought me all kinds of clothes and shoes, pretending to be virtuous in front of my father. I accepted everything, flattered her and pretended to be intimate with her every day. My father was naturally happy to see that we got along well. But Jason, the biological son of stepmother Victoria, was very unhappy and started to target me. It's a pity that his means were too childish. For example, he threw away the clothes his mother bought for me and deliberately made a lot of noise when I was studying. He stuffed dead insects in my school bag and threw poisonous snakes and rats into my quilt. I just silently showed the surveillance video of his demon to stepmother Victoria. Stepmother Victoria wanted to continue to pretend to be a virtuous stepmother, so she scolded him severely and forced him to apologize to me. How could Jason, who was in his rebellious period, bow to me? Instead, he got angry and smashed the house to pieces. He threatened that it would be either me or him. Finally, my father was alarmed. I just sat on the sofa and cried silently. Jason was fearless and shouted that he would kick me out of the house. Dad, if you don't kick her out today, I will leave. Stepmother Victoria pretended to persuade. Jack, you can't do this. She is your sister and the daughter of your father Henry. Can't you get along with her well? Jason snorted. Why should I get along with her well? I get annoyed when I see her. The Henry family will rely on me in the future. She should keep her tail between her legs. How dare she be rampant in front of me? I clearly saw the pride of the trick flashing in stepmother Victoria's eyes. But she deliberately scolded Jason loudly. She also put her arm around my shoulders in a hypocritical manner, saying that it would have been better to have a daughter, who is caring. The more she said this, the more Jason hated me and the more manic he became. She rushed into the kitchen and took out a knife, saying, if she doesn't leave, I will stab her to death sooner or later, and at worst I will go to jail. This scared my dad. He hurriedly coaxed Jason, put down the knife quickly, and talk it over nicely. I continued to add fuel to the fire. You dare to stab me? Okay. I'm here, stab me. My dad finally gave in when he saw that our conflict could not be reconciled. Of course, he couldn't bear to part with his son, so he had to let me down. Vivian, why don't you go back to your mother Catherine? I will give you child support regularly every month in the future. Hearing this, stepmother Victoria and Jason were quiet, and stepmother Victoria's mouth was harder to suppress than AK. Jason snorted with pride. I looked at my dad with tears in my eyes and asked with a sob, Dad, don't you want me anymore? I cried hard, but my heart was cold. Fortunately, I never had any expectations of him, otherwise how heartbroken I would be now. He didn't dare to look me in the eye, but just said, you and your brother are fighting so hard, Dad can't do anything. Your brother is still young, you let him. I asked, but my mom hates me now, she won't accept me. My dad was embarrassed and asked, then. I took the initiative to say, Dad, I don't live at home, you rent me a house near the school. I can take care of myself. I was so sensible, he was relieved and full of guilt. So he transferred the house in the community opposite the school to me without my stepmother Victoria's knowledge. It was a finely decorated house that had been left for several years. You could just find someone to clean it and move in. I took the house deed and moved happily. Before leaving, I hugged him and cried miserably, "Dad, can you come to see me often when you are free? After all, we have been father and daughter for more than 10 years, and he is not without feelings for me." In addition, the guilt of forcing me to leave home and live independently has increased this relationship. So, he transferred another 500,000 yuan to me through Alipay. Before leaving, he told me with red eyes, "Vivian, call Dad if you have anything." As soon as he left, I wiped away my tears. Looking at the money in the Alipay balance, I sneered. A house and 500,000 yuan can't get rid of me. They all thought I was kicked out of the house, but they didn't know that everything was calculated by me. I had already registered a small account and added Jason as a friend. I made up a series of scenes of a wealthy sister and brother fighting for him, leading him to go crazy and drive me out. Because I need a quiet environment without being disturbed, and devote myself to studying. In the first monthly exam of the third year of high school, I ranked 400th in the grade. In the second monthly exam, I entered the top 100 in the grade. In the midterm exam, I rushed into the 40th in the grade. But I know that this is not enough. I must be admitted to Tsinghua University to meet my partners in my previous life. Without their support, my entrepreneurial journey would not be so smooth. I asked for leave for my father at the parent-teacher meeting, because I knew that he would not come to attend, and would only ask my stepmother Victoria to come. If she knew that my academic performance was so good, she would not know how to make trouble. The teacher knew the special situation of my family and did not pursue it. But my mother came and found out that Mandy was ranked outside the 800th grade and could not even get into the second-tier universities. But I was the first in the class and the 40th grade. She went crazy again. That night, Mandy cried and sent me a voice message. "Don't be proud, no matter how well you do in the exam, your father Henry only has his son in his eyes. You have been kicked out, and you are still not awake?" I deleted the dialog box indifferently and did not reply to her. I have always been awake, and she is the one who is not awake. 06 Mandy came to school with a red and swollen face the next day. No need to ask, she must have been beaten by her mother Catherine. When I looked at her, she gave me a resentful look. She has been having a hard time lately. Mom Catherine is becoming more and more like a lunatic, and Simon's relationship with her has also passed its freshness period, and he has started to frequently contact other girls. After Mandy had a few quarrels with him, Simon proposed to break up. Mandy's tricks of crying, making a scene, and threatening to commit suicide saved the relationship. Mandy didn't dare to stop Simon from interacting with other girls after that. She also comforted herself that she was the eldest wife, and the others were just passing clouds. Simon was tired of playing, and would return to her sooner or later. After all, in my previous life, I didn't care about Simon's gossip outside. She thought I had gone through the same thing. She spent more time thinking about how to win Simon's heart. She still didn't care about studying. Several times I couldn't help but remind her to study hard, but she would still mock me. Dad Henry favors boys over girls. Even if you really get into Tsinghua University, he won't let you be the heir. Vivian, you should listen to my advice and find a good man to marry while you are young and beautiful. When she said the last sentence, she was quite sincere. I had no intention of interfering with her fate. Some people will not turn back until they hit the wall. The time of senior year passed very quickly. The day before the college entrance examination, my stepmother Victoria suddenly wanted to take me home to live. The college entrance examination is such an important day. Come home, Auntie will make you delicious food to replenish your body. She was still affectionate with me as if the previous unpleasantness had never happened. I declined twice, and she asked me if I was still blaming her and Jason. She also asked my dad to come and pick me up in person. I had no choice but to go back. Because I knew that what was supposed to come would come sooner or later. If I didn't go back, she would have other ways to deal with me. On the day of the exam, she got up early and cooked for me, made me a delicate breakfast, and heated a cup of milk. I deliberately said loudly, "Thank you, Auntie, you are so good to me. Better than my own mother to me. I really envy my brother for having such a good mother Catherine." Jason was startled by me and stood upstairs with a gloomy face. Stepmother Victoria was shocked and waved her hand with a stiff smile. "It's all right." Jason came down, pushed me away, sat at the table, and poured milk into his mouth. Stepmother Victoria's face changed drastically, and she snatched the milk and stopped him from drinking. Jason was so angry that he flipped the table. "You have never made breakfast for me, why do you make it for her? If I can't eat it, no one else can." After he lost his temper, he went back to his room angrily and slammed the door loudly. Stepmother Victoria could only make 2 identical ones and bring them to me. She deliberately pushed one of the cups of milk to me. "Vivian, don't bother with your brother, he is still young and ignorant." Ignorant? He is already in the 3rd year of junior high school, and he is still ignorant? What a joke. But I am happy to see that he is ignorant, so that he can become a stepping stone for me. I deliberately said, I don't want to drink milk today, give it to my brother. I asked in surprise, why not? 1 cup is enough for him. She tried her best to hide her panic. But unfortunately, her acting skills were not that good. I brought the milk back, and she breathed a sigh of relief, drink it while it's hot. She stared at me, afraid that I wouldn't drink it. I deliberately took a sip, then pretended to be choked and sprayed her face. She hurried to the bathroom to wipe it. I took the opportunity to exchange my milk with her son's. When she came back, the milk cup in front of me was empty. I also apologized to her, Auntie, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it just now. When she saw that I drank the milk, she didn't bother with me. It's okay, you must be too nervous about the exam. I'll go see Jack. She went upstairs to comfort her son. I packed my things and went out as soon as possible. As expected, there was an accident. Jason was sent to the emergency room, and after testing, he took a large amount of strong laxatives. When I got home after the exam, my father slapped me hard. Kneel down. Stepmother Victoria cried with red eyes and stared at me viciously. My ears buzzed for a while, and after a while, I cried and asked, Dad, why did you hit me? My father's face turned red and his neck was thick. You still have the nerve to ask, did you poison your brother and put him in the hospital? My eyes were tearful and I asked with a sob, my brother is in the hospital? Who said I poisoned him? Why did I poison him? Stepmother Victoria sobbed again, full of grievances. I treated you so well and treated you like my own daughter. But you poisoned your brother, you are so cruel. My father's face was very ugly, and he raised his hand to hit me again. Dad, when I left home this morning, my brother was still upstairs. How could I have poisoned him? Stepmother Victoria argued, his breakfast was on the table. You must have put the drug in his milk while I wasn't paying attention. Why else did you rush out in such a hurry? I took a deep breath and gradually calmed down. Since Dad Henry and Aunt both suspect me, let's turn on the surveillance. I pointed to the little doll in the living room. I was afraid of a conflict with my brother at home and I couldn't explain it clearly, so I put the surveillance in the living room. When Stepmother Victoria heard me secretly put the surveillance, her face turned pale. She rushed over first, took out the camera from the doll, smashed it on the ground, and stepped on it hard. Okay, I didn't expect you to be so scheming that you secretly installed surveillance. I pointed in another direction, didn't Aunt put it on too? If I'm not mistaken, you should have turned off the surveillance today. She was dumbfounded again. I didn't expect to be exposed by me. And the painting in my room, Aunt also installed a pinhole camera, right? Stepmother Victoria's face became even uglier. My father narrowed his eyes and looked at her. I had already connected my phone to the large screen TV in the living room. I played the surveillance video from this morning. In the video, the scene of Stepmother Victoria sprinkling medicine powder into the milk cup was clearly captured, and the scene of me stealing milk from myself and my brother has been processed. My father's face was extremely gloomy, and he turned around and slapped Stepmother Victoria. What a good thing you did. Stepmother Victoria cried heartbreakingly, you actually hit me. This girl must have done something. She must have found out that I put drugs in the milk early in the morning and deliberately exchanged it with Jack. After saying this, she regretted it again. My father was so angry that he slapped her again. How many times have I said that Vivian is a girl? She will not threaten Jack's inheritance rights. Why can't you tolerate her? Stepmother Victoria cried and scolded, do you think your daughter is a good thing? She has so many evil thoughts, and my son is simple. What should I do if I can't beat her? I wiped my tears and looked at my father pitifully. Dad Henry, I really don't understand why Auntie hates me so much. I have already left on my own initiative. She doesn't like me and can ignore me. Why did you coax me back, but drugged me on such an important day of my exam? If I hadn't prepared surveillance in advance, I would really have no way to defend myself. He knew he was in the wrong and didn't dare to look me in the face. Vivian, this time it was Henry the father who wronged you. Dad apologizes to you. Don't worry, this won't happen again. Just take the exam with peace of mind. Even if you can't get into college, Dad will send you to study abroad. I shook my head, no, Henry the father, I'm an adult now, you don't have to worry about me anymore. I've kept the evidence and I'm going to call the police and sue her for intentional injury. I know it won't work. This is just a way for me to intimidate my father. To appease me, my father handed me another card with more than 1 million in it. I agreed to delete the video. He's very proud and would never let such a family scandal spread. The matter of my brother's poisoning was also left unresolved. But I know that the struggle between me and my stepmother Victoria has just begun. She will never let me go easily. Not long after the college entrance examination, she encouraged my father to take me to social events. With her grades, she can't go to a good university. It's better for her to see the world with you earlier. Maybe she can meet a good partner and help you through marriage. Although my father's company is very big, it has a shallow foundation. Compared with some real wealthy families, he is just a nouveau riche. Of course, he would love to make friends with those big men through marriage. When he said he would take me to the cocktail party, he did not hide his intentions. Tonight's cocktail party will have many young talents and rich sons. You must seize the opportunity. I did not refuse because I really need to accumulate connections. At the cocktail party, I met Simon. The female companion next to him was not Mandy. My father pushed me. Isn't the young master of the Sue family your classmate? Why don't you go over and say hello? My father did not plan to push me to accompany the old man now. Instead, he hoped that I would make friends with the second generation of the same age. I told him, Simon is my sister's boyfriend. He was very surprised. Seeing Simon so close to the female companion next to him, he frowned repeatedly. Then why didn't he come with your sister? I sighed, who made my sister the daughter of his nanny now? My father's face froze, and he gritted his teeth and said, don't I give her living expenses every month? Does your mother still need to be a nanny? I sneered, you don't know my mother yet, she used all her money to support my uncle. My father was so angry that he couldn't speak. Now you know why I want to divorce your mother, right? She is a brother-supporting demon, she only has her brother in her heart, not our family. I thought to myself, don't flatter yourself. He favors boys over girls, and after my sister and I were born, his career just started to pick up a little, and he couldn't wait to cheat. Jason is only 5 years younger than Mandy and me. The reason why he didn't divorce my mother early was because stepmother Victoria was still the canary of the big boss at that time. My father didn't have the courage to compete with the big boss for a woman, and he didn't know that the child stepmother Victoria was pregnant with was his seed. 2 years ago, my stepmother Victoria's sponsor died unexpectedly. My stepmother Victoria came to my house with a paternity test, and my father immediately started to transfer the property and divorced my mother to marry her. My father thought about it and said, contact your sister and ask her to come back to our house for dinner. I know he wants to win over my sister and cling to the big tree of the Sue family, but I'm afraid he will be disappointed. Simon's feelings for Mandy are not reliable at all. Mandy's brain can't handle Simon's father Henry. What's more, Mandy, with the memory of her previous life, hates my father. She won't be obedient. But I still called Mandy in front of my father. As I expected, she scolded my dad, let him give up on this idea. My marriage to Simon is my own business. He can't get any benefit from it. My dad's face turned pale and he scolded, you ungrateful bastard. I pay her child support on time every month. After that, he didn't mention it again. Instead, he encouraged me to get in touch with Simon more. You and your sister are twins. If your sister can do it, you can do it too. I rolled my eyes silently, shook my head, and pointed to Vincent, the young master of the Vincent family who was sitting in the corner and was very low-key. Dad Henry, I like this one more. My dad's eyes lit up. The Vincent family is much stronger than the Sue family. Vincent is also famous for his excellence. He is 3 years older than me, but he is already a double-degree master from Stanford. I heard that 2 years ago, he had gradually taken over the Vincent family's business and did a great job. Such a person is much better than Simon, a playboy. Can you do it? My dad looked at me suspiciously. I smiled, it's worth a try, isn't it? My dad nodded happily, you are worthy of being my daughter, go ahead. I sat next to Vincent with a drink in my hand, but didn't say a word to him. He didn't mean to talk to him either. I took out my phone and started playing the little game I made. He was immediately attracted by the game. What game is this? Why haven't I seen it before? 09 I knew he was interested in it. But I just replied lightly, I made it up myself. He was shocked, you made it up yourself? I nodded and continued playing. He also took out his phone and started searching, and sure enough, he didn't find any similar games on the market. Can I play it? He asked. I sent him the link and asked him to install it himself. After a while, he said in surprise, although it is still very rough, it is very playable. If it is improved and launched on the market, the prospects will definitely be good. Of course. This game in the previous life was one of my company's trump cards. It is terrifyingly profitable. The one in my phone is a simplified version, and it took me a year to write it. Can you sell it to me? His eyes flashed with the brilliance of a businessman. I shook my head, no. He said, you can name your price. I was still indifferent, no. He frowned, a little disappointed. I continued, no, but I am willing to cooperate with you in development. You provide the capital and I provide the technology. He was a little surprised, probably because he didn't expect that I was so young, not only capable of making games independently, but also very business-minded. He thought about it for a while, and then exchanged contact information with me, come to my company tomorrow to discuss in detail. I also left tactfully and didn't bother him again. I didn't expect him to take the initiative to invite me to dance. I raised my eyebrows and looked at him, but didn't take his hand. What? No? I smiled. You'd better not do this. If my dad sees you, he will treat you as a rich son-in-law. He showed a surprised expression again. I nodded at him and turned away. My dad had been secretly observing me and Vincent. When he saw that I rejected Vincent's invitation, he was very puzzled. Why don't you dance with him? This is the first time he has taken the initiative to invite someone to dance tonight. I raised my eyebrows and said confidently, Dad Henry, if something is too easy to get, people often don't cherish it, right? He immediately realized and looked at me with an admiring look. Vivian, you are smarter than Dad Henry thinks. At this time, he just admired my intelligence, but in the near future, he will definitely regret having such a smart daughter. My dad thought I had dealt with Vincent and didn't introduce me to other people. I was happy and comfortable, hiding in a corner playing with my phone. Simon actually came to me on his own. Vivian? I didn't ignore the surprise in his eyes. But I thought it was very funny. Mandy and I look very similar. Mandy is always dressed up in front of him. Isn't he tired of it? I just put on a little makeup and changed into a dress today, and he was amazed. I nodded to him and said, what a coincidence. Simon sat down next to me. You usually wear an old-fashioned school uniform. You suddenly dressed up today and look pretty good. I said indifferently, thank you. Seeing my cold attitude, he didn't mind it and asked, can you dance? I shook my head to indicate that I didn't, but he pulled me up and said, I'll teach you. He then took me to the dance floor. I didn't want to make any noise, so I could only cooperate with him. You dance well. Did you reject me just now on purpose? Simon asked with interest. I glanced at him and said, don't mess with me. But Simon seemed to have taken the wrong medicine tonight. He completely ignored my rejection and asked me close to me, Vivian, you like me too, right? I was almost sickened by his self-conceit. You think too much. Simon laughed, don't deny it, your sister mentioned you in front of me many times. She doesn't mind me flirting with other girls, but she gets crazy when she mentions you. I didn't want to be part of their play, and the music just ended, so I pushed him away. Simon, no matter how much trouble Mandy and I have, we are still sisters. Don't think about jumping back and forth between us. After saying that, he turned around and left. It was late, so I told my dad and prepared to leave early. But Simon ran after me and wanted to take me home. Just then, Mandy rushed out and pushed me hard, shameless, seducing Simon behind my back. Simon felt very embarrassed and yelled at her, what are you crazy about? You didn't bring me to the cocktail party, but brought her. Do you like her? Mandy asked, crying. Simon was too lazy to pay attention to her. Don't bother me. Mandy had to rush to me and hit me with her hand. I didn't indulge her this time. I grabbed her wrist and slapped her backhand. Don't be crazy, I'm not interested in your man. Mandy was hit by me and looked at Simon crying. She hit me, you don't care? How can I care about your sister's affairs? Simon's face was full of disgust for her. Mandy showed him a test report. I already have your flesh and blood. If you dare not take responsibility, I will sue you for rape. Wait until the matter gets out of hand, and see where your Sue family will put their face. Simon was dumbfounded. He didn't expect Mandy to be pregnant, let alone that she would threaten him with pregnancy. I was too lazy to watch the farce between them, so I turned and left. The next day I met with Vincent and discussed the details of the cooperation. He admired some of my game ideas very much and soon decided to cooperate with me. After that, he often called me out, mostly to talk about work. But my dad thought that I was dating Vincent, and he was very happy and hoped that I could marry into Vincent's family as soon as possible. My stepmother Victoria had a huge sense of crisis. She was worried that I would threaten her son's position if I found such a capable husband. In order to ruin my future, she used the same old trick and contacted the lecherous old man President Brown, who was over 50 years old, in advance. President Brown had a trump card piece of land in his hand, and my dad had always wanted to buy it from him. My dad personally talked to President Brown several times, but the old guy never gave in. Stepmother Victoria pretended to take me out for dinner, but she made an appointment with President Brown. The moment I saw the old man, I knew what stepmother Victoria was up to. Because he was the old man who ruined Mandy in the previous life. I chatted with President Brown calmly and changed the wine glasses of me and stepmother Victoria calmly. After she got drunk, he handed her over to President Brown. Uncle, I have a stomachache. Please help me take Auntie upstairs to rest. Although stepmother Victoria is over 30 years old, she is well maintained. President Brown has always coveted her. Of course he would not refuse. After watching President Brown hug stepmother Victoria into the room, he called my father. Dad, I saw Auntie and a man enter the hotel, come quickly. My father rushed over angrily, but stopped knocking on the door at the last moment. He pulled me away with a gloomy face. I suddenly felt that my father was really awesome. In order to achieve his goal, he could not only sacrifice his daughter, but also his wife. No wonder he could start from scratch and carve out a bloody path in the business world. Maybe this cold-bloodedness was also passed on to me. Don't tell anyone about this. He warned me. I nodded obediently. I know. He sighed, Dad Henry also has a lot of helplessness. I nodded again. He handed me a card, and I knew it was a hush money. When I saw my stepmother Victoria again, she looked at me with murderous intent. But I didn't dare to say anything. Apparently my father had talked to her. She just whispered in my ear and warned me, I sacrificed myself for my son. When my son takes charge of the family, I will definitely kill you. Unfortunately, she didn't live to see that day. My college entrance examination results came out. When my father learned that I won the provincial champion, he was very excited, especially when a lot of reporters came to interview and asked about his education methods. He was so happy that his face was full of wrinkles. He boasted to the reporters and also promoted the new school district real estate developed by his company. I, the daughter of the champion, became his free publicity tool. I didn't mind, because I needed to invade his territory step by step until I completely took it over. In my sophomore year, the game developed by Vincent and I was officially released. Once launched, it became popular all over the internet. I deliberately spread the word to let my father know that I participated in the development of this game. While he was surprised, he also coveted the game industry. He knew how much money games could make. He took the initiative to acquire my small company and merge it into the Henry family group. I agreed, but on the condition that I would be solely responsible for the game business and he could not interfere. I would get a share of the profits from the game. My father thought he had gotten a great deal and readily agreed. After that, I launched several popular games in succession and made a lot of money. Real estate went downhill, and my game business became the company's pillar industry. My voice in the company also gradually increased, and I was respectfully called President Vivian in the company. Under the guise of letting him learn from me, he blatantly took my power. Jason knew nothing, and he gave orders blindly as soon as he came, drastically laid off employees, and stuffed his own people into the branch company. My father felt threatened by me, and actually stuffed Jason, who had not yet graduated, into the game department. I knew he wanted to force me to leave. I left as he wished. But I took away the core members of the 3 project teams, except for the few people he had just recruited. He was left alone. The company's 3 most profitable games lacked core personnel to maintain them, and the servers crashed. My dad had no choice but to ask me to go back. I refused mercilessly. Dad Henry, you want to train your brother, this is a good opportunity. I won't get involved, lest Dad Henry worry that I will fight with my brother for the family property. He had to ask me, tell me, what conditions will make you willing to go back? As expected of someone who has been struggling in the business world for decades, he is not stupid to the end. I smiled and said, half of the shares in your name, isn't it too much? He widened his eyes and was furious, you are taking advantage of the fire. Dad Henry, now the game is the most profitable project of the company, and other businesses are losing money. The shares were given to me, not to outsiders, so what's there to be reluctant about? He said as a matter of course, the company is to be left to your brother. Can a waste like him keep it? I asked him back. He was finally speechless. Jason was not good enough to fight me in terms of intelligence or ability. He took a step back. Half is too much, I can only give you 40% at most. Deal. I smiled and held out my hand to him. He looked at me in surprise, not expecting me to agree so readily. I saw the regret in his eyes. But it was too late. Going back on his word would only anger me and make me quit completely. After he signed the share transfer contract, he said with regret, I should have not let you join the company if I had known. There is no regret medicine in the world, Dad Henry, but you will not regret handing the company to me. Daughters can also inherit the family business, your thinking is still too old. I smiled and patted his shoulder. What he didn't know was that I had bought 8% of the shares of Henry Family Group from Vincent. With the 40% shares he gave, I had become the largest shareholder of the company. With the support of Vincent and several shareholders, a month later, I sat in the position of president of the group and kicked Jason and him out. My dad was so angry that he almost had a stroke and became paralyzed. Jason tried to kill me with his car, but I called the police and sent him to prison. My dad begged me to let Jason go. I took the opportunity to take away his 20% shares. He was so angry, but for the sake of his baby son, he had to bear the pain of cutting off his flesh. While my life was going up, Mandy fell into the abyss. She failed to marry Simon as she wished, and gave birth to a girl, but the Sue family still refused to give her a name. Simon announced that he would be engaged to Miss Zoe, who was a good match for her. She went crazy and hurt Miss Zoe, and was beaten directly into the hospital by the Zhao family. She was 3 months pregnant at the time, and after the miscarriage, her vitality was greatly damaged. Simon avoided her and ignored her. My mother only scolded her for being incompetent, saying that she was wishful thinking and hurting others and herself. She was left in the hospital and ignored. When she was desperate, she found her father Henry. Stepmother Victoria learned that she had a bad relationship with me and took her in. She wanted to use her to deal with me. But she didn't know that Mandy hated her too much. When stepmother Victoria proposed again that Mandy accompany the old man to help my father regain control of the company, she stabbed stepmother Victoria to death with a knife. When I went to the prison to visit Mandy, her face was gloomy. "Are you very proud to see me so miserable?" I shook my head. "What is there to be proud of? No matter how miserable you are, it will not bring me any practical benefits." She obviously didn't believe it. I continued, "I hired the best lawyer for you, and he will help you apply for a mental evaluation. If it is proved that you killed people because of a mental illness, you don't have to go to jail. She has been tortured by my mother for many years, and her mental health has long been in trouble. Otherwise, she would not do such a thing as murder." She looked at me in shock. "You hired a lawyer for me?" I pointed to the person behind me. He was a famous lawyer in the industry and a star in the legal community. No matter how ignorant my sister was, she recognized him. She then asked, "Why did you help me?" "Because you helped me get rid of our common enemy." I didn't intend to pretend to be a good person. Stepmother Victoria was always a hidden danger. She died, and that was it. Without her behind the scenes, Jason, that idiot, couldn't stir up any trouble. Mandy asked me again, "Why could you marry Simon in your previous life, but I couldn't? Is it because I didn't get into Tsinghua University?" I smiled and shook my head. "Because you only cared about pleasing him, but forgot to improve your self-worth. Men are very smart, especially old men like Simon's father Henry who dominate the business world. If you don't have enough value, how could he let you in? Stupid? You could have used your status as the daughter of Henry's family group to form an alliance with his family. But you rejected your father Henry's solicitation, thinking that you could marry into a wealthy family by relying on your fragile relationship with Simon. You are so stupid. In my previous life, I was not just admitted to Tsinghua University. I started a successful business in my sophomore year, but Simon was a playboy who only knew how to play with women." Mandy was completely silent for a long time, and suddenly laughed. "He needs a daughter-in-law like me to help him run the company. So no matter what choice I make, I will lose to you in the end, right?" I answered her, "I have never regarded you as an opponent, I just want to live my own life well. Is it something worth being happy about to win you?" She seemed to be stunned by a hammer, and she didn't come back to her senses for a long time. Finally, she spit out a sentence, "Sure enough, I am too stupid, and I can't blame others." I asked her, "If you start over again, what do you want to do most?" I nodded slightly. "Study hard in this area, maybe it will be useful in the future." This is the last time I reminded her. She thought for a moment and said, "I want to enter the fashion industry. I like beautiful clothes and makeup." If she still refuses to change, that's her fate. The results of the mental evaluation showed that Mandy suffered from severe bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. And the lawyer also proposed to do a mental illness evaluation for my mother. The final result was that my sister inherited my mother's mental illness. During the treatment, she followed my advice in splitting. No need to bear criminal responsibility, need to be hospitalized for treatment. She worked hard to learn fashion design and makeup knowledge, and created many eye-catching works. After being discharged from the hospital, I gave her a sum of money to send her abroad for further studies. A few years later, she made a name for herself in the fashion industry and founded her own brand. When we met again, we were both middle-aged. At the age of 42, she is more charming than when she was 18. Confident and calm, she exudes a vigorous vitality, and the whole person is shining. When she saw me, she hugged me generously. "Thank you." "You're welcome." I patted her on the back. Later, her brand developed in China, and in order to repay me, she took the initiative to merge the company into the Henry family group. Clothing and cosmetics later became one of the most profitable projects of the Henry family group. Mandy and I were also nicknamed Henry Family Twin Pearls on the internet. Many years later, we were old, and she asked me again why I didn't help her back then. I sighed and said helplessly, "Because this is not the first time we have been reborn. Every time before, when you died, I would die with you. I'm really tired and don't want to die young again." She was stunned at first, then laughed and punched me. "I knew you were cold-blooded and heartless, and you would never help me for no reason." I laughed too. She suddenly put away her smile and looked at me sincerely. "Vivian, thank you, being a sister with you is the best gift God has given me." What she didn't know was that what I just said was also made up. I helped her, but I knew that both she and I were pitiful people who were forced into a desperate situation by our original families. I chose to go against the current, and she chose to perish together. There is no reason for us to fight to the death. We are from the same roots, why are we so eager to fight each other?